Welcome to the Manifesting Latina podcast, where you'll learn to unlock your incredible power of manifestation and connect deeply with yourself. I'm Dr. Norma Reyes, your guide and host, helping you manifest a life filled with purpose, abundance, and inner wisdom. Together, we'll dive into the art of manifestation, practical techniques, personal growth, and the magic of aligning with your deepest desires. No more feeling stuck or disconnected. It's time to awaken your inner manifester. Embrace your spirituality and create a life that truly resonates with your soul. Tune in each week to the Manifesting Latina podcast and begin to manifest your dream life. Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I'm super excited to talk to you all about growing your capacity to manifest more into your life, to create safety, to expand your threshold, and what that even means. So I'm sure you have heard people, or maybe you haven't, because sometimes I think people have heard everything I've heard, and the reality is that that's not true. So I want to talk to you all about growing your capacity to be able to manifest your dream life, because that is how you have to do it. And there's two different ways to do this. One of the ways is super slow and very linear, very like, okay, it takes me a year to get a raise kind of thing. Or it takes me 5 years to get that promotion. Or it'll take me 10 years to save money for a down payment for a house. And we ain't got that time. I mean, we have the time, but why would we want to waste our time that way? And so I want to teach you how to grow your capacity so that you can get a raise in 6 months versus a year, so that you can get a promotion in a year or two versus 5, so that you can get that dream house sooner than later. Okay, first, let's go ahead and start with growing your capacity and what that means. So simply, capacity means like how much you can take. How much can you handle without having a freak out, without questioning it, without expecting something, usually bad, to happen, right? Without you feeling out of control. So again, growing your capacity or having a capacity for something is how much you can take in regards to how much wealth you can handle, how much money you can handle having in your bank, how much love you can handle from others, how much pain you can handle. And a lot of you out there are handling a lot of pain and not realizing that you are handling a lot of pain because you are at that threshold of getting to the next step. And I'm going to tell you what is happening, why you are getting stuck in that level of pain and not growing your threshold. So to grow your capacity to move beyond where you are is getting to a place where you are actually calm, right? You see $10,000 in your bank account. I want you to think about right now, what would $10,000 feel in your bank account? If you just woke up today and saw $10,000, what would that initially feel like? Of course, if I woke up with an extra 10K, I'd be super excited. And then you may feel like, oh shit, where did this money come from? And what is going on? And what am I going to do with this money? Can I handle this money? And I will tell you all that when we sold our house in 2020, we got $40,000 from our house. Like after paying for the down payment for this house, after closing costs, everything, 40 something $1,000 into our accounts. Now, at the time, I hadn't actually thought about what I wanted to do with that money. And I hadn't even really had a plan for it. So now ask me where that money is. It's long gone. Which is funny, not funny, but it is like, I didn't grow my capacity to handle that 40K. Me and my husband didn't grow our capacity, because when you're in a partnership, it's not just about you, it's about your partner too, and how they feel and how they're handling it. And so you need to think about that too. Like, yes, maybe your capacity to manage a certain amount of money is to an extent, but if your partner or whoever you are sharing your finances with, maybe a mom, a parent, maybe they're not at the same capacity as you are. And so when there is a lot of wealth coming in, it may feel uncomfortable. And so, in order to make it comfortable, we overspend or don't plan it out or we don't think about it. We don't look at it. And next thing you know, you look at your account and you're like, I barely have enough to pay the bills. So, to give you a metaphor to really get this so that you can really understand it, I love giving metaphors because one, it makes things easier. And two, this is what came to my mind. So, hopefully, it helped you understand what a capacity means. So think of an electric outlet or circuit breaker. It has a certain amount of capacity that it can work at. And if it goes beyond that capacity, if it's too much, it will blow out a fuse or it trip the breaker, and then you have to go right wherever it is in your home. Ours is in the garage. Have to go into the garage and flip the breaker, and usually that can usually help, right? Like usually whatever tripped it was an accident. It wasn't like doing too much. It just happened to happen. You don't have to think about it. Real easy. Sometimes that can happen to us too. Really small little nudge. We break the capacity and then we're back to being ourselves. But if it's something bigger or something that you've never handled before, it may end up tripping the breaker more times. I'm going to give you some real life examples that have happened to us. So, about 2 years ago now, man, time goes by so fast. I think it was about 2 years ago. We had to replace our AC because actually the capacitor went out, which is really funny now that I think about it, meaning like it just couldn't work anymore. And so we went ahead and bought a new AC unit, an HVAC unit. They brought it in, they put it in. It was working great. This was probably like early spring. It was way before it was really hot or anything. So we didn't have to worry about having the AC, but it did go out. And so they came in, they fixed it or replaced it, I should say. And then come winter time that same year, our HVAC kept going off and tripping, like it just was tripping the breaker and didn't know what was going on. My husband was turning it back on, and then we reached out to the people who had put the AC in, like, hey, it's doing this, what's going on? And so they came and they checked it and they're like, well, everything's fine with the AC. It's probably just tripping the breaker. What you'll need to do is expand, having it like in the actual, not just the breaker, like the breaker box in our garage, but like outside, like the actual, I don't know what the box is called outside, but the box outside, you have like that in itself has a certain limit. And so that needed, I think it was like at a 60. I really don't know. I'm not even going to make up a number. So whatever it was, it needed to simply be replaced to have a bigger capacity. And it was really actually very simple. It sounds really scary to do some of these things, but really it was like taking out whatever was in there and replacing it. Like imagine like a cartridge. I didn't physically do this. My husband did. But we didn't have to pay anybody to do it. And he has some brothers he can ask about electric stuff. And so they're just like, yeah, it's real simple. Of course, when we do something so often, of course it's simple to them. They do it. Like that's to them nothing. It's just a simple plug and play. And so the HVAC unit, because it was like 20, almost 20 years old, it was on an older, smaller capacity. Technology has gone better. So the new AC was running higher, and especially in heat, which if you didn't know that, because I didn't really know that or think about that really, heat requires more energy than cooling air. And so because of that, it was running at a higher capacity, at a higher energy load than the AC when we used it all summer long. And so because of that, it kept tripping the thing. And then finally we had to go and get the thing, which was not, it was only like 2 days, fortunately. I think it was one of the days that it was super cold here. Not when we had the snow, but a different day. That was also very, very cold. We had like some record low. But fortunately, we were able to get that fixed pretty easily. Now, that is a time, if you reflect in your own life, where you would need to expand, right? We had to actually expand the capacity of the energy box outside, whatever the heck it's called, the green box. Anyway, that was that. But Another example to give you guys on like the difference between expanding and maybe just kind of like adjusting and growing with change is that this past winter, we don't really turn the heater on too much here because one, it does get cold, but heating a whole house here in Texas is a little different than maybe elsewhere. We have electric too, and which isn't as efficient or it's just not as great as like having gas heaters. And so instead of turning the HVAC to heat, I was like, let's just, get some portable heaters. So we got two portable heaters and I'm like, let's just run them in the living room and then we'll move them in the bedrooms when we need them at night versus running the big HVAC unit. Well, we had put them in the living room and for some reason I hadn't noticed, but my husband kept saying they kept tripping the breaker. And so he kept having to go into the garage and turn it back on. And then he realized that it was that he couldn't have both of the portable heaters on at the same time because it was tripping the breaker. So now there, right? I mean, obviously the option could be to expand the capacitor in the breaker box in the garage, but here it was a simple like, oh, well, this isn't working. So let's go ahead and not put those things together at the same time. Now, I want you to hold on to that because when you are facing some life challenges, these are the two different ways that you can handle them, right? Sometimes you need like a whole overhaul of something. Maybe you just need to change your whole routine. Other times you have to realize, hey, I cannot actually cook a homemade meal on the same days that my kids have a lot of shit going on at school, or I can't cook dinner when I have all day meetings at work, right? And once you understand that, then you can adjust and make the changes that you need in order to grow your capacity. Maybe you make a crock pot meal that day to make sure that you guys make dinner instead of going out and buying something. Maybe you guys have something simple. Like we often think when dinner needs to be something huge, when in reality, it can just be as simple as a sandwich. So hopefully those examples kind of help you understand what a capacity is, how you can be showing that you've met your capacity and what it can look like. Of course, I'm going to go into more details here, so don't feel like maybe that was confusing. So what does that mean for you? How do you recognize this? How do you realize your capacity? First, if you start to lose your calm, this can show up as anger, anxiety, fear, overdoing. You can be shutting down or self-sabotage. And I want to add here on self-sabotage. So self-sabotage, some people might be like, well, you don't self-sabotage yourself and blah, 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 whatever. I'm not here to debate that, but it is a defense mechanism because let's say that you are actually about to grow your capacity in some way and it is really uncomfortable for you. It's really uncomfortable for your ego. Subconsciously, you may start to do things like, let's say that you lost 10 pounds, you're feeling great, you have your habits, and then, somebody compliments you in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable. And they tell you, man, you're looking great. Are you doing something different? And you hadn't actually shared with anybody that you're in this journey. All of a sudden, you do not feel safe. You don't feel comfortable. And instead of waking up and doing your workout or prepping your meals or, making the time to work out, you just stop doing it. And you ask yourself, like, oh my God, why did I do this? Now, this is just one example of how you have met your capacity, how you are feeling uncomfortable, that you've hit a threshold in some way. It may not show up that clearly, or you may not even like consciously even be able to put those pieces together. So please know that I'm giving you examples. That doesn't mean that they're going to be that easy for you to understand. So next, I'm going to talk to you about how to create safety. And then after that, I'm going to talk about how to expand your threshold. So now that you understand what capacity means, you can start to recognize that you've met your capacity, perhaps in dreaming about your next home, your next job, your next pay increase, whatever it is that you want to manifest into your life. You can start to see where maybe you might be tripping a breaker, where you might be meeting your capacity. This is going to look different for everyone, and it can look different to you depending on the scenario. And again, it might look different for you than it might look for your partner, your friends, your children, your family, whoever. And it's okay that it's different. And then also it's okay to allow them to meet their capacity and allow them to grow through that, because you can't make anyone grow. You can't make anyone expand, but you can create safety for them, right? And be like, I see that this is making you uncomfortable. When you're ready, we can talk about it, or this is how I handled it, right? And this is if you are communicating in a very loving way, if you are open with the person. Of course, with your children, it's a little different. You can teach them. And with your partner, hopefully you're having good communication with them. But sometimes they're not ready to hear it, just like sometimes you're not ready to hear it. Or sometimes it just comes better when someone else says it that is not a loved one, that is not a friend. And you just hear from a complete stranger, such as myself, on a podcast. So send them the podcast if you have to. Sometimes that's what you need to do. I recently had a client tell me that's what she did with her brother. And so sometimes that's what you have to do. I know that my husband has told me that before in the past. And I'll be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, that's what I told you. And when I told you that, you didn't hear me. And it's like, it goes both ways, dude. Both ways. So, all right. Now, how do you start to accept that you're at a breaking point, right? And begin to grow your capacity? So, first, recognize it. First, recognize that you are hitting a capacity, that you are hitting a wall, that you're at a threshold into what you are trying to expand and grow with, right? Let's just say money, because it's a little easier to give an example there. But let's say that you want to increase your income or increase your financial wealth by $10,000, and you save a few $1,000s, and then you just spend it all. Like something happens, something comes up. I know something often my husband used to say is whenever we would get a large income tax, he would often say like, oh, something big's gonna mess up now, right? And so obviously his internal threshold about how much money we could handle at once was not very big, beyond like, a few thousand, because if we had more than, let's say, 3 or 4 thousand, then that meant we're not really going to have this money. This money is just going to go to some big expense or something that's coming up. And for all of us, we all have a different outlook. We all have a different capacity as to what some things we're okay with and what we're not. And so you might just be able to identify that for yourself. Like maybe when big money comes in or you've saved a lot of money, there's something you tell yourself, and basically meeting your cap at that, right? Or let's say you pay off a credit card. Mind you, I've done this like several times, maybe 4 times now, where I've paid off like 20K in credit card debt. And then a year goes by or 2 years go by. And I think to myself, like, oh, yeah, I'll pay it off. I'm going to just use the credit card instead of a sinking fund. And if you don't know what a sinking fund is, I'm going to link some money coaches on this podcast episode. I'm going to hit a pause here because my son, my 4-year-old, is here and he is struggling with something, and I'm going to help him before I don't know what he's doing. All right, back to first how to create safety, right? Accepting that you're at a breaking point. So you've identified that maybe you are reaching your breaking point, your capacity, because it is showing up as you either self-sabotaging or shutting down, or you start to overdo things, overworking. Maybe you are feeling anxious. Maybe you're irritated, frustrated. There's fear that you can't really pinpoint to what. Basically, you're just not feeling calm and content. And not that you have to be happy, but just satisfied with where you are, right? You start to either like imagine yourself like a little arrow, right? Where it's like in the middle means calm, and then if it's going up and down, kind of like a thermometer temperature thing, just going up and down kind of crazy. You've reached like a boiling point kind of thing. Then that's when you can start to reflect on that, right? Like, what am I feeling? Identify what you're feeling. Start there. Are you feeling anxiety, pain, fear, hurt, guilt? Definitely check out the feelings wheel and go from there and see. Right. So I did talk about the whole credit card debt thing and how I realized that I didn't really finish that there. Yeah, so I've done that several times now and I've paid them off. And it's like, what am I doing and why am I doing it? And especially like what's the problem with being at zero debt? What does it mean to have zero debt to me? And why do I keep having this threshold of like I can't handle being at zero debt? That's something else for me to reflect on, but just to share with y'all. So you have to remind yourself that you are safe to grow and expand and that to manifest your desires, you have to grow. It's required of you. And since you are at this breaking the circuit, tripping the breaker, so to speak, then you need to grow. So you have to decide to change something, kind of like I talked about when we moved the space heaters, right? We moved them, we rearranged them. You might have to move something in your life. You might have to get a whole new expander. You might have to really change things up to grow your capacity. So you have to create safety for yourself. This will look different for everyone. For some, it's just talking about it with somebody. For others, it might be journaling, maybe going on a walk, maybe creating habits to regulate your system so that when they come up, you can just be able to handle them much better. Right. Think of the times when you are able to handle strong emotions from someone else and they don't trigger you. So take a moment right now, and even when it happens that you are trying to grow and expand your capacity, close your eyes and ask yourself, what do I need right now? What does my inner child need to create safety? What do I need? And really just start to take it in and keep asking yourself, what do I need right now? And keep asking yourself, what do I need right now? What do I need right now to feel better? What do I need right now to be able to be okay with this? And it could be you need space. Maybe you need time. Maybe it could be something fun, a walk, whatever comes to mind. Make a list of all the things that you need right now and then choose to do one each day. Include them in your daily habits or routine if possible, but simply just start to ask yourself, what can I do right now to create safety for myself, to calm my inner Nina or my inner Nino or inner child, however you would like to say it. What do I need right now? Next, I want to talk to you about how to expand your threshold. So, earlier, I was talking about how to grow your capacity after you have met your threshold, but that's being reactive. That's not manifesting from a place from flow and ease. That's actually being reactive. And you want to be proactive. And by being proactive, you are flowing. You are going with more ease and you are allowing things to happen versus you running into a wall and then thinking, why am I running into this wall? So, in order to be proactive, I want to share some ways that you can grow your capacity, how you can expand it so that you can manifest with less stress, less breaking or tripping the circuit, so that you can manifest with more ease and flow. So, if you are wanting to, for example, manifest a bigger house, a bigger dream house, something that's like twice the home you've ever been in, or maybe a home that you've never been in before. Like maybe you grew up in a very, very small, tiny house. Like my house, I think was like 600 square feet or something like that. So, in order to expand how much more house you can have, maybe it's not even just the house, but the level of the neighborhood. Maybe no one has ever left the 5 mile radius in your neighborhood where everyone's grown up in your family. And so, like, the thought of maybe even going and living across town or 10 miles away feels way too much for some people. And so you have to grow your capacity. So one way that I do this unintentionally didn't realize this is what I was doing even before I was truly into manifesting. One of the things I used to do, and it actually started back when I was in my undergrad. I just remember that right now. I was going to community college in the summers. It was something that I did to make sure that I could graduate sooner, which I didn't. I still graduated in 5 years, but whatever. I would do community college in the summers. And so I was driving and I took a different turn. I don't know if there was traffic or what the reason was. I took a different turn and I came across this huge house, huge, like even it would be huge even in my current neighborhood, huge mansion looking home, probably on like 3 acres. And this is in my low to, yeah, low to high income, lower class, but higher on the lower class, if that makes sense. So low, maybe very, very low middle class neighborhood. And so, I mean, most of the houses, like I said, was like 600 square feet. To looking at this huge mansion and have never seen anything in that side of our neighborhood before, or anywhere really, because I hadn't really been anywhere by that point. But it was like seeing something I'd only see on TV. And so I saw it and I was like, oh my God, I want that house. That was the first time that I began to grow my capacity to say, like, oh, I see that, I like that, I want that, right? That's the first stop. The next step is saying, I can have that. And so I used to drive by that house all the time. And now I'm like, I want to go look at that house now. I wonder what I would see now. Fast forward a few years after that, something that I've done and still do. And I just laugh because it's something that I got my husband to do. Like I even was doing that with my husband. When we met, I would be like, oh, on the weekend, like something to do would be like, oh, I want to go look at houses. And we would go look at model homes and stuff. And I remember when we first met, we went to go look at some KB homes. Mind you, I'm not a big fan of KB homes, but I did like the neighborhood that they were in. It was a specific neighborhood I wanted to be in. And so we went to go look at them. And I remember my husband being like, do you really think we could afford a house like this or live in a house like this? And I already lived in a house similar to that. So I don't know what he was thinking or saying, but whatever. Um, uh, Um, yeah, because I already had bought my house in 2010 and I met my husband in 2013. And so I was like, what is he saying? Right? But he had not grown his capacity. He had not gotten to the point that that home, even though I was living in a home like that already, that home was a possibility for him. And so by growing your capacity and looking at houses, for me, that was my thing. And then it got to like even like so those homes were probably like in the low 100s and of course now they're probably more, but back then they were in the low 100s to looking at homes in the $500,000 range and then looking at $1 million homes. And so even after buying this home, which was 350, I had already started saying our next home is going to be $1 million home. And really when I'm looking at some homes, they were really more like in the 700K range because here homes are a lot more affordable. And now those same homes are maybe reaching almost 1 million. But what's funny is that we have now started looking at almost $2 million homes and being like, oh, I want that. Right. And so now when we see like a $700,000 home, even when I see one for sale, I'm like, oh, that's nothing. Now, had I thought about that when I was like in my 100K home to 600K, that's a big leap. That's like over 500,000, right? So you have to grow your capacity by bringing it into your space. I'm trying to find the word, but I can't seem to find the word that I'm trying to say. I guess desensitize yourself, but that sounds so awful. But think of it in a positive way. You can become accustomed to looking at grand homes, like that dream home, by going, and you can go to an open house without dealing with a realtor, just show up, right? And they ask you if you have a realtor, you could say yes. You don't have to say no. You could say you're just looking. You're like, I was interested in the neighborhood and I saw there was an open house. Simple as that. Now, you can decide how to handle that conversation. Personally, I don't like people bothering me. So I would say I already have a realtor. And technically, I do already have a realtor. My friend who's a realtor is the one that we normally use. So because I know for some people, integrity is super important, such as myself. Because if I didn't have one, I'd be like, I don't have a realtor. Which before we didn't have a realtor, actually, when my husband were looking at homes and I would go into the model homes, we would go to model homes. And I mean, we would just say like, oh, we're just looking right now. And sometimes they would talk to us and mostly my husband because said, I don't want people bothering me because I guess I feel pressure to buy. That's why I don't want people bothering me because I put pressure on myself. Like I don't want people wasting their time. And so maybe that's the issue. So grow your capacity to believe that it is possible by making yourself accustomed to it. So if you are wanting to manifest a bigger home, a dream home, a certain neighborhood, start going there, and maybe it's not even going to an open house. Maybe it's going to a park nearby, right? To experience how it would be to live there. Maybe it's going to a restaurant there. Maybe you go there on your route home or drive to the neighborhood, like if that is where you're going to be living. Oh, funny thing is that the exit to my home is exit 175, and that exit number always stood out to me when I was going to my PhD program, which is about like 30 miles north of here, but used to be about 60 miles for me back where I lived. And so I would cross this area all the time. And I would always be like, oh yeah, 175, I'm almost home, even though it's still like 30 minutes. But I guess because it was halfway. I really don't know. But 175 has always stood out to me, even before when I was in my undergrad too. Anyway, that is a way to grow your capacity without having to hit a threshold and hitting that pain, that discomfort, that anxiety about things, right? Because you are putting yourself, you are in control of the situation you're putting yourself in. And so it becomes easier. So that could be visiting homes, visiting the neighborhood. It could be visiting a dealership, right? If you are wanting to manifest a certain car that feels really out of your price range, go. Now, only go if you're very strong-willed and they're not going to bully you into buying you something you can't currently afford, right? I mean, but you can also potentially rent a car. I know that renting a car may sound wasteful, but it could be a way to try and experience something. Now, if let's say renting a car or going to a dealership doesn't feel comfortable to you because you haven't grown that, expanded that, see if one of your friends who has the car that you want to drive or own has it already. And you may not even be a certain luxury car, but maybe it's a newer model car that you currently have. And you can be like, hey, I just want to know what it feels like to sit in a newer car. I'm growing my capacity, I'm growing my wealth. And one of the things that my manifesting coach said to do was to go and sit in a car that makes me feel luxurious. This can also be going and trying on clothes at a more expensive, luxurious place than you normally would. And you might actually find something that's affordable within your budget that you like. Yeah, so those are just a few ways and different things and more tangible things on how to grow your capacity. You can also grow your capacity by allowing yourself to feel all of your emotions as they come without judgment. This is a little bit harder if you don't have a therapist. It's something you can work with your therapist on. You can also go and listen to meditations that help you explore different feelings. And I feel like this needs to be a whole other episode too, right? How to grow your capacity and threshold. So I'm going to end it here before I continue going on tangents about different things. And I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback on this episode. Leave me a review on Apple Podcasts. I truly appreciate that. If you are interested in working with me one-on-one, I am accepting applications. Go to the link in my show notes to apply for one-to-one coaching, and we can see when we can get started. Now, for the upcoming episodes, I would love you guys to know what's coming up. And so I'm going to be talking about prayer and how to add prayer, also my own issues with praying and what I thought about praying in the past, and then also how to teach your friends, family, and loved ones about manifesting and what it means. And then one episode I'm really, really excited. Actually, I'm excited about all these episodes, but in talking about growing your capacity, next week, I will be talking about building belief quickly, which these episodes will definitely go hand in hand because to grow your capacity also means building belief quickly, right? And this is also like quantum leaping. So if you haven't listened to that episode or that meditation, go listen to that. That can also help you grow your capacity by you intentionally doing quantum leaps, because then you are putting yourself in the face of challenges, which will be another episode that's coming up on how to deal with problems and challenges and how that will reflect in how you manifest. Remember that anything that comes to you, it is because you are ready for that challenge. Just like they say, when you are ready to learn, the teacher arrives. So know that you are always in control. And if you are putting roadblocks to yourself, know that it is only because you are trying to protect yourself. It doesn't mean that you're not meant to have what you are desiring. It just means that your capacity isn't where it needs to be and you have a choice. Oh, I did say I was going to talk about that, right? If you are stuck in a lot of pain, let's say you're working towards manifesting and you're finding that you keep hitting this wall of pain all the time. What may be happening, maybe, right? Because it may not be true for you, but know that what may be happening is that you are going to get to that point where you're about to break through that wall, break through that challenge. And then instead of breaking through that wall, you retract, you shut down, you self sabotage, you sink deeper into negative feelings, lower vibe energy feelings, right? When you are at a lower vibe energy and frequency, please go listen to that episode about vibrations and frequency so you can understand that better. But when you are at a lower vibe, it literally means you, your body, your actual vibration is slower. And when you are slower, you're going to feel heavier. Your body's going to feel like a load of bricks. Even as I say this, I say the word slower. Like just imagine right now, slower. You can feel it in your body. You can feel yourself, the weight. But if I say, oh, you're soaring, you're vibrating high, your energy and your frequency, you're pumped up, you can feel energy flowing through you, but it's moving much faster. When you are at a lower vibe, anger, sadness, guilt, shutting down, depressed, and you feel stuck to your bed, know that you literally are, because your frequency, your vibration is slower. It is coming down. And so to be able to get out of that, that's a whole other episode. But know that you can get out of that, and you can start by recognizing it, by doing physical things to shake the energy off. What's important is to reflect on what is going on to make you feel that way. That's why I say this is a whole other episode. If you are having multiple days in a row of this, it's important that you seek a mental health professional to help you with this, because you may not be able to shake it off. Because I don't want anyone to feel bad for feeling down or depressed, and that you should just be able to shake it off, because no. And if you don't know, if this is your first time listening, I am a mental health therapist, so I never would ever suggest that it's that simple. But do recognize that it is real, that you are feeling slower and weighted down. I can definitely feel this when I've sat for too long. My body will feel heavy. This is why getting up and moving is so needed, because you need to flow. You need that energy, that stuck energy to move around. So if you are a person who has been working to manifest, you've kind of understood growing your capacity, but you aren't really manifesting what you want to manifest, it could be that you keep stopping right before. And what's happening is, let's say that you're like, I'm going to run a mile. I'm going to build up to run a mile. And you get up to half a mile and you stop and you're like, oh man, I can't do this. Okay. And so then the next time you're like, okay, I'm going to do it this time. I am going to do it. And you run 0.6 a mile. Right? And it feels good. But then you're like, oh man, like I still couldn't do it. And so next time you're like, all right, months pass and you're like, I'm going to run a mile. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it this time. And you start getting to that 0.5 mile and you're just like, I can't do this. I can't. And you don't. Right? You just start walking and you're like, I can't do it. And then the next time, right, even though you made half a mile, which is awesome, it's better than 0 miles. And even just getting out there is enough sometimes. But instead of celebrating the fact that you got out there, that you made it to half a mile, that you made it to 0.6, you're just so fixated that you didn't get to the mile, that the next time you think to yourself, I want to run a mile, you say, why even bother? Like, I couldn't even get to a mile last time, or I couldn't even get to half a mile, and I did that last time. So now this is a visual, and now you might struggle with that too. So, as to what is happening when you aren't manifesting, you feel like you are putting your all and you feel like you are getting there, and then you don't. It's because you're actually retracting even sooner than you did the first time. So, what can you do to grow your capacity? Well, in the running example, instead of telling yourself, is something that I've done in the past when I was growing my capacity to run further, instead of fixating on the end goal of 1 mile, I would say, like, oh, I'm going to do a quarter mile, I'm going to do half a mile. And if the distance itself is too much to even think, just even say to yourself, okay, 1 more minute. Can I run for 1 more minute? Can I run for 1 more minute? Now, when you are growing your capacity and maybe there's some emotional pain and issues coming up, you can ask yourself, what is going on? How can I grow my capacity in this pain? You got to feel your feelings and you got to reflect on what is causing these feelings. And a sentence structure you can use, I recently posted this on Instagram, is when I blank, I feel blank, right? That's how you can start. When I do blank, I feel blank. This is how you remove yourself and your identity from your emotions and start to identify them and feel them more. So I am so excited to continue these episodes for you all. Got to tend to these children who keep calling for my attention. I hear it, Bobby. I'm going. I will talk to y'all next week. Thank you for listening to the Manifesting Latina podcast. Did you love today's episode? Please help us grow by leaving a review, sharing with a friend, or on your social media. Let's spread the abundance and fun of manifesting.